What is up, 2K crew? Yes, it is that time of the week again. It is podcast time. And if you're watching on YouTube, you see across the desk from me is my talented co-host, Mr. 2K's Kyle Kaler. What's up, brother? Good to have you back.
Good to be back. Had a lot of fun, though. I don't know did you mention anything last week about me being out of town?
I don't think I did. I just mentioned that you and I did not get in a fist fight. But no, I figured I would let you tell the 2K crew where you were out and about and kind of what your thoughts on the stadium were and the teams and everything. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, so the wife and I, we got out of town for the weekend, left the kids with a babysitter, and were able to get away and enjoy. We went out to Minnesota and visited some friends. We stayed with them for a couple nights, and last Saturday we were able to go to Target Field, watch the Tigers playing against the Twins. Unfortunately for us Tigers fans, it did not go very well. The game started off really good for them, and then about the 5th or 6th inning, it went from being ahead 4-0 to we're down 9-4, and that was what it ended. But no, a beautiful ballpark. It was the first time I had ever been there. The last time I was in Minnesota, they were still playing in the Metrodome, so it's the first time I've been able to see Target Field. I was very impressed.
Oh, cool.
Very impressed.
Cool. And but yeah, we actually got a lot of views on the show last week, so 2K's better step it up. Because I know for a fact folks don't like to hear me talk just all the time and see this face all the time. So. But anyway, well, let's jump into everything 2K crew. Yes, it is that day. I've been looking forward to this one because we're going to jump into giving you our reaction on basically the whole festivities of All-Star Week. You know, last week I kind of gave you my predictions and broke down I want to say it was the first 14 picks of the draft because that's all that was live when we were live. But 2Ks, I'll bounce some stuff off you, kind of get your take on some things, and then we'll jump into where we see the the rest of the second half, kind of lining up for the MLB season. But for those of you that do not know, my name is Ryan Turbo Jackson. I've already introduced my extremely talented co-host, Kyle 2Ks Kaler. We are Turbo and 2Ks, where we give our amateur opinion on everything sports. And for those of you on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, drop a comment, and I will feature you on the show. So let's get a conversation started. And for those of you on the podcast, go ahead and give us a follow, because we don't use subscribe anymore. Give us a follow. That would really help the channel out as well. And if you're feeling super saucy and you want to help the channel financially, go to buyturboabeer.com, buy us a beer, and you'll be financially vested in the Turbo and 2K show. So, but either way, just go ahead and give us a like, subscribe wherever you're at. And like I said, if you're feeling froggy, don't be afraid to jump. And we do have a comment here, Mr. B Fishing for Cards, and I'm B Fishing for Cards. Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you. Good to see you're in here, brother. We really ought to make Ben a moderator for our chat. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of people in our chat, and it gets kind of crazy. So, might as well get Ben in there. But now that all that's out of the way, let's jump into All-Star Week. All-Star Week, and pretty much nowadays with any kind of, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, it seems like the festivities around the game are usually more enticing to watch than the game. But baseball is usually kind of different. The Pro Bowl sucks. No one plays defense, but you really don't want to get hurt in the Pro Bowl. I get that. NBA is basically like a dunk and 3-point shot contest, even though they have a dunk contest and a 3-point shooting contest.
Yeah, but the dunk contest is a bunch of guys that we've never even heard of.
Very true.
Come off like bench players in it because, God forbid, LeBron James or anybody like that would hurt themselves.
Yeah, might sprain his vagina. Ben says he's overworked and underpaid. So, I have a lot of 1998 base tops I can pay you with, Ben. So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. We'll get you taken care of, brother. I promise. Get you taken care of. But I actually, the one thing about the MLB All-Star Week that I didn't get to see a lot of was the Futures game. And to be perfectly honest, I was more excited to watch that than the actual All-Star game. And so, but unfortunately, the way my schedule worked out, I didn't get to see a whole lot of it. But I kind of ran down, the players I was looking at and kind of judging to see where they're at as far as their major league journeys are concerned. And but that was pretty cool. I did catch the highlights. Ben says he only wants 91 Fleer only, please. Well, you're gonna make me dig for some stuff now, Ben, huh? But so I talked about that. Ran down the home run derby, kind of gave you, which it was no secret. I put money on Ohtani just because Ohtani, and then I didn't even look at the bracket and put money on Soto. So one of them's out regardless because they pretty much dueled in the first round. But I did mention that. And I'm not saying I picked Alonso by any means, but I did happen to mention that he's hit more home runs than any of these guys ever have in a season. Does it look like Ohtani is going to pass him? Yeah, but it's not like Pete forgot how to hit home runs. He is having a kind of an off year so far, but it was kind of cool to see Pete just drop dick all over everybody. And then talked about, kind of gave my prediction for the All-Star game, which was completely wrong. Because the American League pretty much owned that game the whole time. Yeah,
and it seems like over the years the American League kind of just dominates the All-Star game, period. I mean, you look at those two teams on paper, and I think the National League is the better team.
Oh, 100%.
But that's the thing about baseball. The best team doesn't always win. I mean, so it's so hard to predict that. But kind of going back on the talk about the Futures game real quick, just to kind of bring up for all of us Tigers fans. That's what we have to look to kind of hang our hat on right now. We were able to watch Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green both started that game. I think Riley Green had a couple hits in it also. But I mean, that's that's what we're looking at right now. I mean, it's been a rough 10 years pretty much for Tigers fans. So to be able to kind of see the future, I think it's safe to say that those two guys are going to be kind of the what the Tigers start to kind of build their, this next wave of teams that can possibly compete and maybe make a run for a World Series here someday. I think it's going to go around those two guys right there. So to be able to see them in the futures game, it gives us at least some hope.
And it gives you kind of a glimpse to see what they're made out of. Because and I was excited because we don't get to see these guys unless you live close to the stadium, and you like we live close to the South Bend Cubs. It's nothing just to hop down, 45-minute drive, watch some good minor league baseball there, but if you're like, I'm a Red Sox fan, I don't live anywhere close there, so to see my dudes there, that's what I'm looking forward to, because we don't get to see them. And for those folks that don't make it out to games or whatever, like you mentioned, Torque and Riley Green, that's kind of where you're hoping those two guys can take that team to the next level. So to get to watch them play, and not only get to watch them play, but get to watch them play against their peers. Because they're for those of you that don't know what the futures game is, it's their first year and second year guys. So a lot of them aren't ready for that major league step yet, which is fine. That's why they're in the futures game, instead of seeing that sink or swim moment when they do make it to the big league squad and either flourish or flounder. And you never want to see your favorite up and coming guy flounder. I mean that. And does it happen? Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. Now speaking of those two guys, I think we'll see both of them up with the big club at some point this year.
I agree.
Because why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Once they get to the roster expansion, that's when I think we'll see them come up. And then both of these guys are going to be given every opportunity to make this club next season.
I was honestly shocked that Riley Green didn't break camp with him, and I'm sure it has to do with the arbitration and stuff like that, because it's not like the Tigers have a stud outfield that he's trying to break into. Ben says, watch Pete Alonso's appearance on the show Meat Eater. I hope that's not a porno site, Ben. He breaks down his methodology on his gameplay, and it's inspiring. So it doesn't sound like a porn site, so thank you, Ben. But if it is, blame Ben, not Turbo or 2Ks. That was B fishing for cards. So, but I totally agree, and like I said, there was, the number one prospect in this year's Bowman, Austin Martin. There was just a handful of guys that we're waiting to see to the big league. So it was a good kind of preview or prelude, if you want to consider it that way. But so, what was your thoughts on the home run derby? I'll give you mine brief, because like I said, 2K Crew heard about what I thought was going to happen, which obviously didn't. But I think ESPN, and this is something that's been documented by even folks that work for ESPN, the Dan Patrick Show, Pat McAfee Show, a lot of folks, that's the only part of the All-Star festivities they watch. Or take my wife, for instance. That's the thing she wanted to watch. She would rather watch home run derbies than a game any day. And that's kind of the lure of that, is you're getting a lot of the lay fans that don't want, like you and I, we'll sit down and watch an 18-inning game. It doesn't matter to us. But for the lay fans, that's where it might be their only time watching. And ESPN, in my opinion, got the whole viewing experience completely fucked up. And on top of that, if you're a completely degenerate gambler and you took the over-under on that, I want to say it was 519 and a half. They didn't tell you how far each one of the home runs went.
No,
didn't tell you. So, which I have a feeling moving forward, because everything is going more towards, and I this is going to sound completely stupid, but I do think it's legit, is with the increase of sports betting, where we can do it on our phones, where we don't have to be in the casino to do it, that's going to drive a lot of our viewing experience. Why might you ask? Because I guarantee DraftKings, Barstool, MGM, whatever app that you're using, I guarantee they're going to sponsor at least some part of an MLB thing.
Yep.
If they don't do it this year, they're going to be doing it down the road. And if they're going to place a bet on their site where it has to do with home run distance, not the average distance, because that's what everyone. It seemed to me like they were more. They wanted people to know the speed.
Yeah. Bat speed, ball speed,
exit velocity.
Yeah.
They thought that was more impressive than the actual distance. And I'll leave you guys with this, and it's more the distance is more important, especially this year considering it's in Colorado. If it's anywhere else, yeah, we it's awesome to see 500-foot home runs, but when you're in Denver and that's the thin air, the ball flies farther, that's what we want to see. We want to see someone drop dick 600 feet, and I think ESPN dropped the ball very much so. Is it good? Because I think they'll never do that way again. I can almost guarantee that. So moving forward, hopefully they take the advice of the Turbo and 2K show.
Yeah.
But more importantly, us. I mean, Pat McAfee has some pull. Dan Patrick has some pull. But, you know, it's us. It's us. Yeah. I mean, come on. So now that I've went on my rant, I'll step off my soapbox. Let me know your thoughts.
I mean, the home run derby itself is great. Ever since they've changed the rules and got away from the 10 outs formula and went to, you know, you get 3 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever it is, the time limit, it's so much better. Because now we get to see the best of the best and just let them swing. And instead, when it was a 10 ounce, you know, you only get 10 ounce. So you're sitting there taking 3-4 pitches in a row because you're waiting for your pitch to be able to work with it. And it turned into the home run derby taking 4 hours to complete because it was so much taking pitches and waiting. And it kind of got to the point where it was boring. And when you have a group of the best players in all of baseball, especially the best power hitters, and all they're doing is hitting 500-foot bombs, there should be nothing boring about that. But they made a way to find it. Yeah. You know, it's boring. But this is where baseball has it the best because we talk about the NBA, you know, All-Star game is a joke. Nobody plays any defense. The dunk contest is a joke because nobody's ever heard of anybody in it. The three-point contest, that's about the only thing they can hang their hat on.
Because Steph Curry wins it every year.
And then you flip it over to football, that's all just a joke. I don't even remember the last time I watched anything to do with football or...
The new skills challenge stuff they do is fun. To me, that's way more exciting than actually watching
the game. Yeah. But then baseball, it seems like every year they do a good job of getting the best power hitters in there. I mean, yeah, we're missing one or two of those guys in this home run derby, but as far as the guys that we wanted to see Shohei, obviously. We get to see that. Vlad Jr., we get to see it. Juan Soto, I know his power numbers haven't been, you know, up to par this year so far, but he put on a show. I mean, that first round between him and Shohei was a 1 seed against an 8 seed. Yeah. And that was one of the best, competitions I've seen since they've changed this home run derby. So, as far as the home run derby itself, I thought it was great. I mean, yeah, probably not a lot of us wanted to see Pete Alonso win it, unless you're a Mets fan. I'm not taking anything away from him, but when you start to see kind of some of the other stars, to be able to see Shohei win that, or see Vlad Jr. win that, I think that would have been, you know, very drawing to the fans. But no, I thought the home run derby was the best part of the whole week.
Absolutely. And then on, you know, probably the biggest story overall was Mancini. Just his story get there.
Absolutely.
And then not only that, just to get there and compete, dude gets to the finals where I guarantee no one besides like his family is probably the only ones that put money on him. And dude again drops dick and
I think his style kind of suits that time limit home run derby because he's got the short compact swing. He doesn't hit the majestic home runs where the pitcher's got to wait for the ball to you know, get to a certain spot before he can throw the next one, to where, you know, when you got Soto and Shohei hitting 500 footers, I mean, it takes a little bit of time for them to be able to get to the next one. on top of that, when you're swinging like that, you get tired.
Yeah, and you can tell Ohtani was just being.
Yeah, but that was the most impressive thing. Getting back to the winner of it, Pete Alonso, was that didn't never look like he got tired.
No, it looked effortless.
He was hitting longer home runs than probably anybody in the Derby, and at the end of it, looked like he could have probably won a whole nother round.
Guitar and getting the crowd pumped up. He was never nervous. He was never pressed. It's like he does this every single day, and again, effortless swing. Watching him swing, and he looks like just his swing to me reminds me a lot of David Wright. Granted, two very different physically very different, but if you were to watch both of them side by side, you would see a lot of similarities. And even though when David Wright was coming up, I'm a Braves fan. They're in that same division. David Wright was just that type of guy you had to like.
You had to like him, absolutely.
So, yeah, I did pay pretty close attention to David Wright, and I mean, obviously, how could you not like Pete Alonso? Dude's won more money winning 2 home run derbies than he's made salary.
Yeah, and then he takes his shirt off and he has a body like us. It's just a normal.
I love it.
Not like shredded like some of these other athletes that we watch. It's like
I'm shredded, motherfucker. Shut up. Shredded.
You see him and you're like, I could do that.
Yeah,
I could. Yeah. Why can't I hit 500-foot bombs?
So then to me in the way they have the schedule set up, I mean, it's everything's building up to the game, and I'm glad they set the lineups and everything the way they did. So Ohtani pitched first, hit first. First time it's ever been done. Ever been done. So you know what? I love the fact that Kevin Cash put him lead off. Just get him up there, get it out of the way. And because that's a lot of the non-baseball fans, that's what they're there to, that's what they want to see. So get him out there. And then on top of that, I guarantee dude was nervous as fuck. So get him out there. He ended up getting the win. And I mean, hitting, I think he went 0 for 2, so that part wasn't huge, but overall, just think of how much pressure and how much everything he was under, carrying the load of all the attention. And then even the backlash with, you and I were talking about Stephen A. Smith before we went live. Add that onto that, and he's doing it all with a smile.
Yeah.
I mean, just his attitude and everything is just, let's do this.
You had to think, like, he had to have been just exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
To start that game. I get it. He only pitched 1 inning. But you coming off the night before in the home run derby and going into a swing off with Soto.
Twice.
Twice. He had to have been dead after that. And then come back and pitch the first inning, bat lead off. Like, it had to have been. I mean, the All-Star break is supposed to be time to kind of get right again and get take a break from it for a couple days and then get back into the the season. I mean, the haul of the season. A baseball season is so long and so consuming on your body, and so he really didn't get a break. I mean, he probably worked harder during this week than what he would in his normal week.
That and he showed. I mean, he showed the world how big of balls he has, because, and that's something we'll get into later in the show. Is that's everyone's talking about. Can he keep up this pace? Can he do this? Can he do that? But we'll save that. We'll save that. We'll tease you a little bit.
And the only thing I'm going to say on it before we even get to that is you have him, and I'm talking about the Angels, and then you have the guy that everybody has said for years now is the best player in all baseball, and Mike Trout. When are you gonna just unload the book and just?
You have to
go for it. I mean, you have 2 of the best players on your team now. Right now, you're not even paying Shohei anything.
No, less than $10 million a year.
Yeah. So, to me, it's like you got to go for it. You got to go all out for it in the offseason and bring players in and. Yeah, I get it that they're not the draw that Dodgers are, or maybe not even the draw that the Padres are, but you got Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on you. You can't tell me that you're not going to be able to land free agents and not find guys that don't want to come play with that, because those are 2 of the best players we have. I really think Trout is still the best player in all of baseball.
So.
But then Shohei, and I'm guilty of it as much as anybody else. I've sat here in this seat and talked about Soto and Tatis and Acuna, and I haven't given the respect that I should have to Shohei. I mean, it just kind of silently doing, and not so much silently, but I think in the beginning of the season we weren't really talking about him. He was coming off the injury season last year where he didn't play at all. He really hasn't been healthy since he's been here.
No.
And now, him being healthy, I don't know if there's anybody better than him. Yeah, there's nobody that is more valuable to their team than he is.
No, and it's something we'll get into. I'll kind of give you a little teaser question here, 2Ks. If you're Vlad Jr. and you're putting up the numbers you are, what if he wins a triple crown? Mm-hmm. Is he the AL MVP and Shohei keeps up this pace? I don't know. Don't answer that yet because we're teasing it.
It's a tough question.
Yeah. And we got another comment here from Mr. Fisher. So the Japanese people in general are very mechanical and methodical people in the way they live. I'd imagine that workload is right in his wheelhouse. And if I'm not mistaken, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, or 2Ks, correct me if I'm wrong. Even the way the pitchers in Japan, they don't get as much rest. They do more bullpens, or there's more work throughout the season for those guys as opposed to our major leaguers. Like I said, I always reserve the right to be wrong, but I do believe I overheard that somewhere. But overall, I was very pleased. I mean, granted, I lost every bet that I made, so financially it wasn't good. But overall, just the experience. Yes, ESPN dropped the ball when it did come to the home run derby. The Futures game was cool, the parts that I did get to see. The All-Star game itself, I thought they did a very good job with. I absolutely love the mics.
Yeah, so do I.
I thought Chris Bryant handled all those questions, even though Joe Buck was the one asking them. He handled all those questions very well. Mm-hmm. And obviously the one question every baseball fan wants to know is, how do you keep focused when your name's been on the trading block for 2 years? Mm-hmm. How do you keep focused? And I loved his answer. He goes, well, it's kind of hard. It's kind of easy to stay focused when I'm playing a different position every day. And Joe Buck actually asked a follow-up question. He goes, well, is that something you like? And he says, well, it's like being a little kid again. And he got this big grin on his face, and he says, back in Little League, I played a different position every game. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I don't mind it. Mm-hmm. He's like, and that was a great answer because I could see myself saying something like that if I was in his position. Because if you're not playing a constant position, you have to, the preparation and everything has to be so much better, so much greater than just, you're like Javi Baez, for instance, on his team. Javi plays short, only plays short. Could you imagine that arm in like right field though? That would be legit. That would be legit. But no, I mean he answered it very, very, very. I mean, nailed all the questions. It was cool when they were asking Tatis about Vladdy, and then Vladdy goes deep, and we get his reaction. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Oh man, show off a little bit more. It's the All-Star game." Which, if I hit that type of bomb anywhere in my slow pitch softball league, if I hit a bomb like that, I'm bat flipping and doing all kinds of crazy. I might actually like do a cartwheel partway down to first base, just because. Which, if that ever happens, there will need some medical professionals on staff because I will pull something or break something. So, probably a good thing that I can't hit the ball that far. So, well, 2K, anything else on the All-Star game you want to wrap up?
No, I loved it. I loved the whole week, really. I mean, and I can't say it anymore. Like the talent that we have. Really, the only negative thing I can say leading up to this whole All-Star game and now going into the second half of the season is one of the best players in the game, in Ronald Acuna, going down just before the break with the torn ACL. Obviously, going to be out for the rest of the season. That's just kind of it was just kind of a lull going into the week. A week that for us baseball fans is nothing but excitement. But then when you have one of the most talented players in the world go down with that kind of injury, that's the only part of it that just sucked.
Well, I tell you what, my friend, that's the perfect segue into the next segment, which is our National League predictions. Where do we think this National League is going to go? And you nailed it right out the gate. The biggest thing, probably on most every baseball fan's mind, is the Acuna injury pretty much the signal that the Braves are done for the year. And they're 4.5 back, and then there's the Phillies in between them and the Mets.
Yeah.
4.5 is not a huge lead right now, especially in that division where it seems like no one really wants to win the division, which is going to be given to someone by default. And so is it obviously as baseball fans, unless you completely hate the Braves, when you saw Acuna went down with an injury, I think we all just kind of held our breath and said, please don't be an ACL. But it is. And Ben says upset of year that Acuna went down. Okay, Ben, I think we need some grammar in there, but it's neither here nor there. I think I get the gist of what you're saying. But no, yeah, and like I touched on last week is like, all right, in this kind of odd season for the Braves, because I'm pretty sure most everyone picked the Braves to win that division, running away with it, and their starting pitching has been lackluster. Their offense has been up and down, and now with this injury, is it going to be better for Acuna long term to sit out the rest of the year and not put that wear and tear on his body? Because I'm pretty sure the Braves aren't even in they're probably further behind in the wild card than they are their division. So not making it to the playoffs. Now you watch, because we're talking about it like this, the Braves are going to make a huge fucking run.
And they make a huge fucking move. I mean,
they
got the trade deadline coming up, and they have a decision to make. Are they gonna? We all know that they have a very good farm system.
Yep.
They've coming up, and they have a lot of young kids that, they got the Christian Pache kid that we haven't seen really much this year, but last year in that whole playoff run, he was playing great for them.
Yeah.
So
he just couldn't hit this year.
Yeah, but do they make a move? Do they try to make a move for one of those Cubs guys, to kind of fill a void in that lineup? Obviously, a guy like Chris Bryant, you can play him anywhere. I mean, so he can slide into the outfield position. Yeah, not going to be what Acuna is, but as far as bats goes, he's right there on par with that. So, or do they just kind of stand still and say, hey, well, we're probably not going to get it this year. Let's look at, just keep everything together and not necessarily trade the whole farm away. Get Acuna back going into next season and just go from there.
Hopefully
this Braves team is very young.
Soon.
Yes, they're very young. And I don't think that they have a window that's closing anytime soon to where I think
they have to re-sign Freddie Freeman.
Yes.
That's going to be the key.
Yep.
And I mean, let's be honest. Freeman's been that bridge between Chipper Jones and now.
And I don't think Freeman
is the face of the franchise.
I think Freeman
is
going to work with them to come back. I really don't see him playing in any other uniform.
No. I would be absolutely shocked if that happened.
I think this is one where the Braves just kind of, the Acuna injury is awful. Maybe, you can kind of ride off of somebody else, and they can still win that division. It's not like they're out of it by any means, but I would not want to see them trade away everything for basically a rental player.
No.
And then, lose a lot of these farm system players and then get Acuna back next year. Well, then they don't have this, the young talent coming up anymore. They're young, and I don't see this window closing anytime soon. No. Their biggest problem that they need to add to their team is pitching to me.
And your boy Green, he's been sucking. He's been absolutely sucking. Every time I watch that dude pitch this year, he is giving up 3 and 4 runs, and it's hard to watch because when he was with Tigers, he was
good. He was automatic.
Yeah, and when the Tigers made that trade, he was probably the biggest bullpen piece of that trade deadline. So, yes, granted, he didn't sign right at the beginning of the year. He signed later. Maybe he's still going through getting his feet wet.
Yeah.
A dude like him just doesn't lose it, I don't think. So, is he done? No, but you're right. The pitching in Atlanta is so young. The whole team's young. I mean, it's kind of like, the Cubs in 2016 when we're talking about Anthony Rizzo being the grizzled vet. Not the Braves have Freddie Freeman, the grizzled vet. So, yes, for the Braves to be successful, not only this year, but continuing, re-signing Freeman is the number one priority. It has to be. It has to be. And then pitching, but it's where the Braves go from here is going to be how the front, like you mentioned, how the front office views this year. Do we just kind of cut bake and chill for this year, get Acuna back next year? In the offseason, do we sign some free agents? Do we make some trades? Or do you do it at the trade deadline?
Mm-hmm.
But then when you're doing it at the trade deadline, a lot of times that signals, like you said, a rental.
Mm-hmm.
And how much are you really can't sell the farm for a rental.
Yeah.
And because Atlanta's done that before
Mm-hmm.
when it came to Teixeira, and the Yankees got a haul.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of left the farm system kind of bare there for a few years. So I'm pretty sure the brass is going to kind of tell us where that team's going. Speaking of a team that is hitting on all cylinders, 2Ks, are the Giants for real? Are they going to keep this? Now, granted, if memory serves me correct, they have a half-game lead over the Dodgers.
Yep.
Not only do... It's a kind of a two-part question here, 2Ks, is are the Giants as good as their record, or are the Dodgers going to get their heads out of their ass and actually get atop this division, which I think all of us going into the season penciled them kind of almost into the World Series. So where do you see that going? Do you see or it could be a combination of both. Do you see the Giants coming back down to earth and the Dodgers being closer to that team that we thought they were going to be? Or does it kind of stay right where it is? Dodgers play some mediocre ball. I'm pretty sure the Dodgers have the second best record in baseball, so it's not like they're playing marginal baseball. But do you think this Giants team's for real?
I've tried to write these guys off for the last month and a half. I'm like, how can this team, when you look at their roster, how can they hang with the Dodgers and Padres? I mean, to me, I thought those two teams would just run away with this, and San Francisco would just fall somewhere in third because the other two teams in the division are terrible.
Yep.
But they would not even be anywhere close. And to see them now, past the All-Star break, one game ahead of the Dodgers, they flat out pitch it.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily guys that you would expect.
Gausman.
Yeah. It's so. No, I don't think this holds up. I think at the end of the season, both the Dodgers and the Padres pass them up in this division. Still might have a very legitimate shot at a wild card to be in. So, you could see three teams in the same division.
I think both wild cards come out of that division.
And that wouldn't shock me. But do I think that at the end of the season they're going to be, ahead of the Dodgers and the Padres? I do not. I just don't. Offensively, they're nothing special.
No.
They pitch the ball great, and it just seems like everything's kind of just went their way so far in this half of the season.
And it's going to come down to, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard the stat is those two teams, the Giants and the Dodgers, play a lot here very soon. Mm-hmm. So maybe by the end of that, we kind of get a better litmus test on where these teams are trending. Mm-hmm. So Ben says Gausman comes back soon too. Yep, you're very right. And what a career resurgent year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone wrote him off years ago.
I mean, their pitching rotation is a bunch of guys that basically have been kind of written off. I mean, I don't know the last time that really anybody's mentioned Johnny Cueto, and all of a sudden this year pitching very good baseball. And who's the other one?
Is Jeff Samardzija still on the roster?
I don't think so.
They finally got rid of that $80 million debacle of a contract.
Alex Wood, he's the other one that's pitching the ball very well for them.
Which he had some very good spurts with Atlanta. He had some very good spurts with the Dodgers. So it's not like he hasn't done that before, whereas Gausman, it seems like he's always had that cannon, always that arm, control problems or issues. He wasn't healthy all the time. He gets to San Francisco, and everything just falls into place. And dude is one of the top 5 pitchers statistically in baseball.
And it's smart to kind of to load up on your pitching there with the Giants, because it's a very tough hitter's park. It's not a hitter's park at all. So when your pitchers are pitching the way that they have, they have one of the best home field advantages in all of baseball. So they keep pitching like that, they're going to keep winning a lot of ball games.
Yeah.
And you look here, I'm looking here at the at their schedule so far this season, they're 30-13 at home.
Wow.
I mean, that is just insane.
Yeah, that is. And then there's like my Red Sox seem to have, well, for the longest time had a horrible record at home. So it puts you. What's the old adage? You want to win series at home and play 500 on the road.
Yep.
So. Ben, in his infinite knowledge, says tortoise versus hare. Tortoise versus hare. Let's see. What else did I want to talk about in the NL? Well, we kind of touched on it. I legitimately think 3 teams from the West are going to the playoffs. I think that the 2 wild cards are going to come out of that. In whatever order it may happen, the Giants, the Dodgers, and the Padres, I think all 3 of them are making the playoffs. And if I had to, and again, I'm going to stick with my guns, and if I had to take one of them out, it's got to be the Giants. But like you said, I keep trying to bury these dudes, and they're just kicking the sand off, kicking the dirt off. They're like, Turbo, fuck you. Not yet. Not yet. And a lot of folks, when it came to the Giants, even with another career resurgent year for Longoria. He was having one of his best seasons of his career, goes down with an injury. I can't remember if it was season ending. I do believe it was, which is unfortunate because even though I'm a Red Sox fan, I was a huge Longo fan. Sure. But yeah, it was cool to see him kind of get back to where he needed to be, or not needed to be, but in my eyes should be. So that division, I think, is going to be one of the hottest topics for the second half, regardless AL, NL. Just because of A, the star power, B, it's the West Coast, and they're all kind of right here. So, yeah, to me, that's going to be it's going to be the major storyline for the NL for the second half. Let's switch over to the AL. And if you guys looked at the thumbnail, the guy right in the middle, Mr. Chris Sale. I'm going to ask you this question, 2Ks, and I asked it to the 2K crew when we were on when our timer was going. It is how will the health of Chris Sale affect the American League playoffs? Because essentially, the Red Sox they quote unquote they're going to acquire a top, a number 1 starter. Essentially acquire him without having to give up anybody. Yeah. And it's if he's anywhere close to what he was, normal Chris Sale, that's going to be huge for the Red Sox. And it's going to be huge not only because you're adding that arm, but you didn't have to go out and trade for anybody. You're not having to worry about rentals, and the players that you have in your little trade core, you can now go out and look at other options. The Yankees and Red Sox are playing right now. Unfortunately, my Red Sox are losing 3-0. But they were talking about a possible Anthony Rizzo to the Red Sox.
Back where it all
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Back where it all started. You're 100% right. And now if Sale if Sale's not in the equation this year, then I think, yes, you have to go out and get a top-line starter. Not to say that the Red Sox rotation hasn't been bad, but you look at some of the rotations you're going to go up against in the playoffs, that's where it gets kind of sketchy. The Red Sox are winning games because they can kind of outscore a lot of folks and kind of, brush off that mediocre starting pitching. And when it comes to playoffs, you really can't do that. You really can't do that. So getting Chris Sale back, in my opinion, if he's anywhere near, because we know with Tommy John, it's kind of hit or miss. And usually it's a year and a half before they're at their, they hit their stride and they're back. A lot of times even stronger. But if he's anywhere near what he was, to me, that makes the Red Sox the favorite.
Sure.
In the American League.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like the White Sox team. I think they're, but they're another team that needs a pitcher. That probably could use another pitcher.
And speaking of the White Sox, I saw something that Eloy might be coming back here pretty soon. So.
And really, that it's probably the same thing can be said for every single one of these teams that are going to be in the playoffs in the American League. The White Sox could use another pitcher if they're going to make a run and be contenders. I think the White Sox are the best offensive team in all of baseball. I really do. I think their offense, especially they get Luis Robert back. Now you have Eloy, who sounds like he's going to be back probably here very soon.
Yeah.
I think he's already on his rehab stint. You get Luis Robert back into that. This offense is already one of the best in baseball, and they've been missing two of their best. Yeah. So when they could use a pitcher, you could say the same thing about Houston. Houston could probably take another pitcher, but that Verlander not being able to go for them, that kills them, and that rotation. Oakland A's, they could use another pitcher. That's a very good offensive team. Also have some very good pitching.
They're all young.
Yeah, super young. And that's the same thing about the White Sox. They're super young pitching rotation also.
Except for Lance Lynn.
Yeah, and you talk about Tampa. Tampa could use another pitcher also. So I mean, the same thing could be said, and we've seen it here, especially in recent years. It's not so much starting pitchers. A lot of these teams, they pick up guys, just any pitchers, because now teams' bullpens are so loaded that in games, especially in playoff games, you start to see teams just do kind of a bullpen game a lot of the time, where they just piece things together and pitch. They might pitch 5 or 6 different guys at you, but if you're facing 5 or 6 different pitchers and they're all throwing 95 or above, and all you're asking is go out there and give me 2 good innings, so then they can go out there and just gas it, to where we don't so much see the workhorse starting pitchers that we watched there for a very long time. But getting back to Chris Sale and to Boston, if Chris Sale is anything close to what he's been his entire career, he's a Cy Young caliber pitcher. He's one of the best that I've ever seen, especially in the last 10 years. And so, obviously, a guy like that, a guy that's pitched in big situations, big games, to me, if he comes back and he's anything close to what he was before this injury, which I have no reason to believe that he won't be.
No.
I think Boston probably is the favorite.
Ben S. Jarren Durant coming up, correct? He came up yesterday. He's actually playing, or started tonight. So, yes, for those of you that don't know, Jarren Durant is one of the Red Sox top prospects and is an absolute stud. So, playing center field tonight. So
he does not have a Pete Alonso-like body, by the way.
No, but Jesus, man. He's the ripped version of that. Fuck. I'm pretty sure I shared a picture in the 2K group. The dude's arms are like the size of my head. It's fucking crazy. It's crazy. And yet they're comparing him to Johnny Damon. Get the fuck out of here. Johnny Damon doesn't even have an outfielder's arm. Period.
And he can't fucking hold his alcohol.
No, that's very true. It's very true. You heard it here first, folks. Heard it here first. Next question. We're actually seeing the Tigers make some noise, 2Ks. We're actually seeing them. I'm not sure if it's a weak part of their schedule, but even looking at their division, they're not last, and they're not last by a handful of games. So it's not. I mean, which the Twins have been one of the biggest disappointments of the year so far. I'm pretty sure every baseball fan, analyst, anyone that's even watched a game will tell you that. And the Royals are the Royals. But I'm liking where this Tigers team is trending. Are they going to compete this year and make a wild card spot? No. But as Tigers fans, there's a lot of encouraging things that you're seeing. And we talked about Green. We talked about Torkelson. This team might be ready sooner than a lot of folks think. So.
And they battled a ton of adversity this season. I mean, you talk about Matthew Boyd and Spencer Turnbull being hurt for a majority of the season. We saw Turnbull throw a no-hitter earlier in the year. So we know the caliber pitcher that he could be. And Matt Boyd has been, he's not been great, but he's been very consistent pitcher. And if playing on a better ball team over the last 3 or 4 years, probably would have a lot more wins on his resume than what he has. But yeah, the one thing I can really say about this team is AJ Hinch is one of the best in the biz.
Yep.
You know, this is you look at this team on paper, and there's not one part of me that could see this team being 43-51, especially after I mentioned the injuries that they went through this season and some of the guys that they've been missing, and have kind of pieced this lineup together from.
Oh, there's been bubblegum stuff.
Yeah, guys that I follow the Tigers more than about anybody I know, and they've been pitching some guys that I've never even fucking heard of.
Right.
And I've seen some guys in the lineup that I've never even fucking heard of either. So, that being said, for Hinch to have them, you know, where they're at right now, where 43-51, I mean, to me that's a lot better than I ever expected.
Yeah.
And. You know, look, the White Sox are going to win this division. They're going to run away with it. I don't think anybody's even going to be able to compete with them. And I think Cleveland will finish second, but I think the Tigers will stay right there in third place.
Yeah.
The Twins can't pitch. They're the worst pitching team in probably all of baseball.
They hit the fuck out of the ball.
They can hit the ball, yeah, absolutely, but they cannot pitch it. And they give up way too many runs. Kansas City's, they're just kind of, they're really in the same boat as Detroit. I mean, you got two teams that don't have very much talent at all. But the Tigers being where they're at right now, I think a lot of the credit, probably about all of the credit, goes to AJ Hinch and that staff that they have. And then, kudos to Chris Fetter, also the pitching coach in his first year, come from the University of Michigan.
Working with a lot
these
of
guys
young
can
kids.
pitch it. He's got some good pitchers, and probably his job when this season started, the hiring of him was probably more important at the time than Hinch, just because the way that the Tigers have started this rebuild behind Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal and Matt Manning and Alex Faedo and the list goes on with all these young pitchers. There's a lot of pressure on him. These kids got to pan out. So
yeah, and getting back to it, I mean, being that a pitching coach with that staff can either be frustrating or super rewarding because you do have such young players. A lot of them aren't kind of set in their routines, set in their ways, have these bad habits that they picked up throughout the years. You're starting with kind of a fresh slate. You can install that routine, those habits. But on the other hand too, younger kids can be harder to work with. So it takes a special person to take, to even Hinch having as young of a team as he has. Granted, you look at the Astros when he was there, again, a lot of young kids. So he's one that can handle a young staff without needing a veteran laden team. But when you are a coach like that, I'm sure seeing their steps and progression to success has to be so rewarding because you're the one kind of molding that. They're the clay, you're the artist. You put it together, and there it is for everyone to see. If I was that coach, I would be so pumped. I mean, granted, is everything unicorns and rainbows? Hell no.
No.
Hell no. But they're these, and I say kids because in their major league journey, they are kids. There's not many players, pitchers in particular, they can, when they hit the major leagues, they're just running and getting back to everything is puppies and rainbows. Position players can kind of do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Tatis do it. We've seen Vlad do it. We've seen a lot of these young position players just hop in there and take off.
Yep.
As a pitcher, though, I think that it's got to be a lot harder. And Ben says Peralta and Alexander. Who would have guessed? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We were just talking about both of those pitchers before we went on the air. So yeah. Yep. And like I said, Tigers fans, I know it's not there yet, but all signs are pointing to where this team is being built and constructed to compete with the White Sox on an annual basis for the next 10 years.
And if you take away, I mean, they were awful at the end of April and all through the month of May. They were terrible. I mean, they were playing.
Couldn't hit the ball.
They couldn't hit. They couldn't pitch. They were awful. And then you now looking at June and we're more than halfway through July now. They're playing over 500 ball in those 2 months. So it's. I think they're ahead of It's taken a long time, obviously, to get to where they're even at right now. But I do think that they're kind of ahead of the schedule a little bit.
I think so.
They make some splash this offseason. They're going to need a shortstop. They got to get a shortstop on the roster. Kind of solidify that pitching a little bit, and then let these young kids go. I mean, let Torkelson and Riley Green give them their shot, and hope that some of these other young kids take off too. So, I mean, I'm not to the point where I'm super excited about this yet, but I'm getting close. I'm getting close with them, and the fact that they have AJ Hinch now, I think he just kind of is. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Gardenhire, because I did like him, and I don't think he was ever given a shot with this team. I mean, he just had terrible talent every year that he was managing there. But I think Hinch has given these kids some hope. Like they have hope, and I think they for the first time in a long time, I think the Tigers believe that they can compete.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not where they're they're not where they need to go yet. But they're well on their way. Like you said, they're ahead of I think everyone's pace that they thought they were going to be. So yes, all signs are trending good here, Tigers fans. All signs are going good.
Yeah, I mean the difference of it all, like you look at kind of the Tigers and the White Sox, they kind of shit at the same time, but the difference is the White Sox sold at the right time, and the Tigers tried to drag it out for 3 more years. And that's probably why in this whole rebuilding phase, the Tigers are about 3 or 4 years behind where the White Sox are now.
But like I said, the encouraging fact is they're on their way. They're not like the Pirates, where they're just sitting and sitting, accumulating draft picks and just sitting and sitting.
Yeah, and the history tells us that the Tigers eventually are going to buy. Yeah, you have to believe that eventually they're not just going to sit on all this money for much longer. I think they've been waiting. They've been basically building up the draft capital and by shitting the bed and sucking, and they've drafted very good talent. And I think that they're kind of in that lull where it's hard for us as fans to even watch them, but they're waiting for these kids to kind of come up, and then as they are coming up and being able to compete at the major league level, that's when we'll see them start to spend the money to bring the guys in so that it all happens at the same time.
Because it's just pointless to spend money just to spend money when the core nucleus of this team just isn't ready yet. Isn't ready. All right, 2Ks. We'll pass that hour mark, but Ben says, "Let's buy Brian Hayes." You know what? That sounds funny, but you know what? If the Pirates being the Pirates, and if I was Brian Hayes, I'd be like, yes, please buy me. Please buy me. I promise to touch first base every time in Detroit. I promise.
Well, the Tigers, they're gonna have opportunities, I think, to be able to pull a shortstop this offseason. Just
they have
with
to
some
get
of these names. You got Trevor Story, that's a possibility. Carlos Correa is going to be a possibility there. He's obviously has connection with AJ Hinch playing there in Houston. Those are probably the 2 top guys on my list of who I would like. Because that's the thing, the Tigers really don't have a true everyday shortstop in their entire organization.
I do find it ironic that their current shortstop, his last name is Short.
Yeah.
And you know what?
He's
like
not
it's
bad.
Meant to be.
He's not bad. He's not an everyday guy that you're going to roll out there but he's a guy that could give you a game or 2 a week, and he gives you pretty good at bats. He's very good defensively, but he's not the everyday guy like Carlos Correa or a Trevor Story or somebody at that caliber.
And one of the things I mentioned on last week's show was just kind of exactly what you just said. The Tigers shortstop is not on the big league squad. It's not in the farm system. And the ones that they do have, where if you look at a lot of the successful teams, their shortstop is a 25 to 30 home run guy. You can kind of give up a little defense in order to do that. And if you're San Diego, you already have your 25 plus shortstop. The Red Sox are well on their way. You mentioned Correa. He's still with Houston. Trevor Story, that team's not making the playoffs, but he's well on his way to hitting that. So it's kind of become you need to have power there, where traditionally that wasn't a need to have a power hitter.
Somebody that was just you wanted your best defender there. Yeah. That was what it was all about. And now, the game has changed. I mean, everybody wants those guys that can hit. Not necessarily, we're not looking for guys anymore that are batting 300.
No.
Because it's okay if you're batting 240 and 250 now, as long as you can hit 35, 40 home runs. Mm-hmm. That's what it seems like all of baseball is looking for now. And
which is sad.
Yeah.
Which is sad. But it's the state of the game. And one upcoming show I do want to do is to discuss the possible rule changes that Manfred has suggested or wants to reverse. Let's put it that way. And you'll hear 2Ks and I kind of break down those, give you our opinions, because I shared it with the 2K crew group. And for those of you that want to jump on that group, here is the link. Facebook.com/group/2K crew. I mean, yes, it is 100% free. And like we've said before, I usually get a Facebook notification faster from that crew than I do from ESPN. So we do have a lot of fun in there. We do it, like I said, the 2K crew's on top of their shit. So if you want to stay on top of stuff, definitely join the group. But I kind of teased with and wanted to get some reaction from you guys and gals about the rule changes, and there was some. I'll read off some of the reactions, and we'll do kind of a whole deep dive into that, and maybe bring on a special guest, so it's not just 2Ks and I arguing about this. We'll actually have a majority with 2 out of 3. So, yeah, that's definitely an upcoming show. But 2Ks. I really do think we're in for a hell of a ride for the second half. And I think once the playoffs are set, this could be one of the best playoffs that we've seen in quite a while. Just because, first of all, the star power that's going to be there. And on top of that, are we going to get to see Mike Trout in the playoffs? Is that a possibility? Will he come back in time because they've been playing great baseball without him, which is sad.
Yeah.
But are they too far behind right now, even with Trout coming back, to scratch that? I mean, in my opinion, even if they get into the wild card, that's enough for me. Mm-hmm. Do I want to see him win the division and not have to play the playing game? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I think they're a little bit too far behind to do that. That's something we definitely need to keep an eye on. We talked about the NL West. We talked about the Braves without Acuna. We talked about the addition with Chris Sale. And it's going to be fun to see all of these young kids either have their first time around with the playoffs or see how they go from their first appearance to the second, how much more comfortable they are, what's their production. So I think we're in for a hell of a treat, and I think we're in for a hell of a ride. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty excited about the upcoming trade deadline. Are we going to see guys like Chris Bryant moved? Are we going to see a Trevor Story moved? Mm-hmm. I honestly believe both of them are going to be moved at this deadline. And then you talk about kind of Mr. Cub himself and Rizzo. Mm-hmm. Is there a chance that he leaves also?
Could you imagine him hitting in Fenway? God damn. Got a chubby just thinking about it. Which, I mean, with that, sure, there's the DH in the American League. Bobby Dahlbeck was a very good player. Not as good right now as Rizzo. No. But Rizzo's still super fucking young.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, do the Red Sox just drop dick and be like, we need this guy right now? Or could we use those prospects to get a different piece? Mm-hmm. So you're right.
What are the Yankees going to do? I mean, we're talking about a team that never shies away at the deadline. Yeah. Do we see the Yankees go for Trevor Story?
That's a good point. And I kind of jokingly, a couple weeks ago, messaged our card trading group, do the Tigers trade for Gleyber Torres? And there was, which probably won't happen, but it's just, if you're thinking about how you could acquire a talented shortstop for the least amount of prospects or least price. Yes, he's scuffling right now. I get that. If you trade for him, he's got a lot of arbitration years left. Super young. Got a lot of pop.
I don't think he'd ever be a shortstop, though.
but he'd be one hell of a second baseman, which I'm 100% in agreement with you. And I think if the Yankees had a better option, he would be at short or at second. But even then, he could be one of the best second basemen in baseball. And because he's hit before. It's not like he just forgot how to hit. So is that out of the question? I don't know. We'll just have to see. Do I think it'll happen? No. But it's just it's one of those that no one's even talking about. The Tigers themselves really aren't being talked about as being buyers right now. But do you do like the Mets did when they went out and got Stroman? That's paid off. Yeah. Everyone thought they were ridiculous for making that trade. Looks like it's paying off pretty well right now. And I think what it all boils down to, we're not GMs. We're just two guys yelling at you in microphones. But Ben says Yankees looking at Starling Marte. I don't see how that would help a whole lot, but I don't know. Last I checked, Ben, Starling Marte does not pitch. Yankees need a whole lot of pitching, but they also need, believe it or not, with that lineup, they need a whole lot of offense.
Yeah,
because they just haven't been hitting.
The Yankees they're famous for just going and trading for that big name. Like they do it all the time. That's why it would not shock me to see a guy like Marte end up there, Trevor Story, the big name like that. Obviously, pitching is what they need, and I really think that they'll address that also. Just because it just seems like the Yankees farm is like never ending either. Like they just keep on bringing in all these farm players and they can trade away all of them that you ever have heard of, and then they come back the next year and they got like their scouting department has they got to have like the best in all of sports. Yeah,
I 100% agree there. Unfortunately, you are correct.
The only one I would say that probably we're not going to see being moved for the Yankees is, as far as prospects goes, is Mr. Jason Dominguez. I don't think we'll be seeing him going anywhere.
He was another one that getting back to him, he played in the Futures game. Stat line wasn't great.
No.
I did, and that was one of the dudes I really, 18, 19, something like that. But he was one of the ones one of the reasons I wanted to watch that was to see him. But like I said, unfortunately, I missed it. But I'm sure on MLB Network they'll have a replay. So if anyone sees the replay, let me know so I can catch it or at least DVR it. Well, 2Ks, it's the wrap up, brother. Anything else you want to kind of tie a loose end, dot an I, cross a T, dot a lowercase j?
No, NBA. I don't really want to talk about it a whole lot, but obviously Milwaukee has made the comeback, won 3 in a row. So they're ahead 3-2 now. Well, they go back to Milwaukee now. So I unfortunately I think the Phoenix run is over. I don't think Phoenix gets out of this. It would not shock me to see them win and force a Game 7, but I don't think they're going back to Milwaukee and beating them twice.
It's going to come down to which studs play better. Chris Paul and Devin Booker were outplayed by the three of Milwaukee, hands down. Giannis is playing at a whole other level. Chris Middleton is playing at a whole other level.
No, and the one thing you could say about, I think Devin Booker has been pretty consistent all this entire playoff. I don't put anything on him. But game 1 and 2 where they win, Chris Paul was perfect. I mean, he played, and then these last 3 games where they've lost, I don't think Chris Paul's played very well.
Going into last night, game 3 and 4, he was only averaging like 12.5 points. Devin Booker can't do it by himself. He scored 40 points, I think, 3 consecutive games. He needs help. And Chris Paul needs to drop at least 30 when he's dropping 40. And I want to say, too, that Booker's only one of like 5 dudes in NBA history that has posted 3 straight 40-point games with 3 straight losses. So
I think Phoenix is they've been exposed a little bit in these last 3 games as they have matchup problems. They can't match up with, I don't know how many guys can match up with Giannis.
No.
So that's a huge matchup problem. Then the way that Middleton's playing, and that's to where I think Milwaukee has kind of the head on them right now. Is Milwaukee has guys that are just kind of defensive specialists. Tucker being able to, what he's done And, in these last 3 games guarding Booker, yeah, I get it that Booker's still getting his points, but
the dude who's guarding Chris Paul should be the MVP.
Yeah.
His name's escaping me right now, but
Ben Holiday.
Yeah,
Drew Holiday.
Yeah, thank you.
And
but he's taken Chris Paul completely out of his game, fucked with him so bad. That's the reason Chris Paul is playing horribly. It's not Chris Paul's choking. It's just that Drew Holiday is just locking him down. And then on the other end, Drew Holiday is scoring 30 as well.
Yeah.
So that, to me, there's like, because if you're holding Chris Paul to 12 and a half, he averages probably closer to 20. That's a 38-point swing. If he's putting up 30 and limiting Chris Paul to almost 10 points a game less, and if he doesn't, you add those points back to Chris Paul, there's 2 wins right there. Because even though the Suns have been outplayed for the vast majority of those games, it's been close. It's come down to the wire. So you add 10 more points to CP3, there's 2 more. There's 2 Suns victories. Title over.
Yep.
Title over. So yes, Giannis is playing up to where we need to see him. But Holiday is the one that's kind of low key, just being that thug.
Yeah.
And that's the difference in the series right now. That's the difference in the series. Well, 2Ks, I'm sure we'll at least have a little bit of an NBA talk next week, because regardless, it'll be over. And we kind of have to give it at least one segment. So, but yeah,
touch on it. Yeah, we'll touch on it.
No, yep, cool. Game 6 was done. Bye. But no, I think we'll leave you guys with that one. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe if you haven't. Drop us a comment. Ben, thank you. Ben, Mr. B Fishing for Cards. If you do like watching card opening videos, go on over to his channel. Give him a like, subscribe, tell him the 2K crew sent you. And we will see you guys and gals next one. And as always, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.